So I'd like to know that how do we choose the right humour for a professional audience?
I would say that think about why you're using the humor. You're using it to connect, and you're using it, again, framing it as a love language, as a way to sort of, to bring people together, but to say things that are important and say things that you wouldn't say directly. When you're using humor at work, in any context, I would say the only appropriate use is for connection. So does it go through the filter, is this going to connect people? I'm a comedian, but I talk about how to use humor as a tool for connection. It would be counterproductive for me to go up and shit all over the audience. It would be fun, but for me personally, and I'm not generally, I know people do it very, very well, but to me, even in a club, I usually prefer to take the view of it's not funny unless everyone is laughing.
From writing for Letterman and Ellen to helping leaders bring the room to life, Beth Sherman knows how to make words work. If your team's falling asleep, it's not their fault. Your story needs a glow-up. Get ready to laugh, learn, and lead like never before.
Today's guest is a 7-time Emmy Award-winning comedy writer known for her hilarious contributions to shows like Ellen DeGeneres Show, Letterman, and The Tonight Show. Now she helps speakers and business owners use humour to connect, communicate, and captivate. Welcome to the Unlock Podcast, Beth Sherman. How are you?
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the alliteration.
That's all right. Yeah, I know. It's almost like you gave that information to me, but who knows, right? It was good fun. Yeah. Beth, I've got to start this right straight off from the beginning, which is, what was the first joke that you ever told that made you realise, hey, I'm pretty funny?
Well, I didn't say it on purpose. How's that? And I got in trouble for it. So I come from a family and a culture that has a good sense of humor, East Coast, Jewish. I mean, there's sort of, if you can't laugh, you'll cry. And in my house in particular, it was the language we spoke. When I was in second grade, which would be about 7 years old, I was in math class, or sorry if your audience is British, it's maths class. I've sprayed my microphone. But the teacher said, who wants to learn Roman numerals? And I said, without thinking and without trying to be a jerk, I said, let's not say we did. And I got a big laugh, but I really wasn't trying. I was a shy little kid. And the teacher her head exploded. She came over, she grabbed me, she took me out of the room, and they'd sort of divided the kids up into the lowest, the highest math class, the kids that have a future. And I mean, the awful ways they don't do it anymore, but the kids that they're going to put some effort into, and then there's, other levels. And I was in the higher one, and she took me out, brought me across the hallway to another classroom, which had the kids that they were not putting quite as much effort into. Again, this is horrible, but said, if you don't want to learn, this is where you should be.
Wow, blimey.
And I mean, I didn't want to it became family legend because I didn't want to go to school the next day, but I didn't actually tell anyone what had happened, and I hid. So then my mom thought I'd left the house and then walked through, what do you call it here, the mud room, or, sort of walked through the room where all the coats and everything are, and discovered me hiding and scared the crap out of her. But then I had to tell her what happened, and then she had to not laugh. But I think it's one of the first times I had a sense of the power of humor.
Yeah, it's infectious. Your story sounds very similar to one of my magic shows where I was pulled off stage because of just something being highly inappropriate. But I think we're going to probably have lots of connections here, I think.
But I didn't know. I genuinely, people said, were you the class clown? No, I was shy and wanted to be invisible. That's why I spent most of my career, a lot of it behind the scenes, before I had the guts to go out in front and hold a mic.
Fantastic. Wow. I'm really curious about this because I think there's this thing that we often think that we're funny. And I've come from a family where my dad was a storyteller, my granddad was a storyteller. And I think I've probably adopted a lot of those principles. And I think that I'm funny. I'm probably really not. I'm probably just like really sarcastic and it's just terrible. But I'd love to dive into this about how can we inject humor into communication, into life, into the professional world. But before that, your backstory is fantastic. You've worked with some amazing people. Obviously, you're a 7-time Emmy Award winner. So give us a little snapshot of your backstory of how you've got to where you are now.
Well, improbably. So it wasn't a direct line, but when I was a kid, I grew up in a house where I sort of took it all for granted. I guess if you grow up when your parents are musicians. I mean, my mother was an occupational therapist and my father worked in public relations for a big insurance company. You would have called it internal comms now. And so, and this was in Philadelphia. It's on the East Coast of the U.S., about 90 minutes from New York, but just nowhere near show business. The only claim to fame in our area was that there was a neighbor's mom who was an extra in Rocky. That was in the Rocky movie. That was it.
Wow.
So I wanted to be a journalist, mostly because I'd watch these magazine shows and it seemed cool what they did. They got to go different places and every week it was something else. And that seemed about right for my attention span. And there was a sitcom that I really liked called Murphy Brown that was about a journalist. And I enjoyed the show, even because it was fiction, I guess. But one time a magazine show, the type that this show was based on, because it was about someone that worked at a news magazine show, they did a behind the scenes. And in this behind the scenes, they didn't just focus on the actors. They showed this magical place called the writer's room. And this was where there was like 10 guys, I mean, mostly guys, around a conference room table. And their only job over the course of the week, so one person would get assigned, they would break the story to figure out the story together. One person wrote the draft. And then over the course of the week, the room's job was to make this script funnier. Not just funnier, but funnier in the voice of each character. Because that's important. And so, but to me, 15-year-old me thought, that's a job? These people are getting paid for it? These are funny people who get to spend 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours, it was TV, it was production, in a room with other funny people, and their only job is to one-up each other, is to see who can make it the best, the funniest, and get the biggest laugh. And genuinely, once I knew that was a job, it was the only thing I wanted to do. And I went to university. I studied TV production, but honestly, that I should have just studied history or something that interested me because it was Boston, the hotbed of sitcom production, Boston. But then I moved to Los Angeles and worked my way up as a production assistant, a writer's assistant, and then got opportunities to be a writer. So basically paid my dues, and writer's assistant is where you're in taking notes, which I guess is all AI now, but you got to be in the room. You didn't get to contribute, but you got to be in and listen and see how it was really done. And then you write your own stuff for other things, and I got opportunities, and then they continued, fortunately. Wow. But that, so I spent several years there were a few shows where I spent longer, and then, so Ellen and Letterman and Leno, and then started working on a lot of award shows and a lot of specials. So did shows like Screen Actors Guild Awards a few times, the Oscars a couple of times. Wow. And the weird little superpower that those jobs give you is not just how to write in someone else's voice, it's how to be funny in someone else's voice.
Yeah.
So how to because communication is, we can all say the same words, but how can we make them just a bit more engaging? Either all the way to funny or just simply a bit more engaging and personal. How can we own what it is that we say? Wow.
So I'm really fascinated by this because there's a guy, forgive me, I'm going to not credit him, but he's a magician, but you might know him. He works in, he does a lot of screenwriting and the writer's room for a lot of big comedy shows. I'll try and find his name. I'll edit in some sort of AI voice or something over this. But he told us about this experience of the writer's room, and I was fascinated by this whole experience of like, well, you're going to write something and there's an idea for a joke, but how do you even know if it's funny? Because it's not your own voice. Like you said, it's someone else's voice that you're trying to write it for. So I'd love to know about this experience of what is it like in that writing room? Because I'm sure, like, to pardon the phrase here, there's a lot of dick swinging, as the thing might say, so how after you like pitch to go, I think my idea is like the best. So tell us about what went on and what happened during these writing room.
Well, dick swinging is kind of accurate. I came up at a time when I was a lot of the time the only woman in the room. I'm also, saw a lot of, it was a different era and things have changed. I would still say almost like sports. It still is, there are women who are athletes, but generally culture does not encourage us to be funny. And so it's fewer women. In those rooms, the good head writers put those rooms together like a baseball team. And by that I mean, or I guess a football team, whatever, pick your sport, but where you want different people who are good at different things. You want one person who's can just throw out line after line after line. You want someone else who might just sit in the background for a while, but whenever they open their mouth, it's good. You want someone, usually so you kind of have you want a mix of people. It's hard to get your voice heard. I think it takes time and experience and patience and mentoring to figure out how to get your voice heard. I know for me, I'm 5'0" and I'm a woman in a room full of big, loud guys who really enjoy the sound of their own voice. So it quickly became apparent to me that I wasn't going to be the loudest person. Just physically, I couldn't. And I didn't really do it on purpose, but I found that when I would get jokes in, when I would score jokes or land something, it was when the room was quiet. Because I guess what all women do is we figure out how to work smarter, not harder. But it was when the room was quiet. And so I became a sniper. Not really on purpose, but that's sort of what worked. So everyone would have a lot of ideas, and then what succeeds in the best rooms, it's peeling the onion, right? So there's a lot of sort of the obvious stuff, and then you get to stuff that's better, and then you think, yeah, but we kind of heard that before. What's the twist? How can we make it just a little bit different? How can we go beyond what the audience expects? Because, right, we all watch things and we think, it's fine. I've seen it before, but how can you really sort of surprise people? But again, still staying in the lane of what's in this person's voice, what's the truth of the situation. So yeah, I after years of pitching things and hearing the guy next to me just repeat it and people go, that's a great idea. I was like, I've been saying that.
Oh yeah.
I would just wait till the room was quiet and pitch. So I found that worked. But also really in writers' rooms, comedy is a team sport. Played by a bunch of introverts, weirdly. But comedy is a team sport because you can't do it in a bubble. You need a reaction from other people. So in those rooms, they are also people who are all very passionate about humor. They want to laugh. I mean, they don't want you to succeed. They want you to die so they can do better. But it's like any competitive thing, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But they love it. Yeah. So there's a pleasure. We all love that dopamine hit of enjoying something.
Yeah.
So it's definitely as competitive as it is.
Yeah.
Your colleagues do want to laugh, if for no other reason that you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And when it's 2 a.m. and you still, the boss has killed everything beforehand. When you get something, you go, when you get a buy, when you get a yes, great, we love you, because we can go home now.
I'm assuming you must have had then some crazy deadlines, because I'm sure I remember you saying at the Professional Speaking Association, there was a couple of instances where you literally just wrote down the joke or the script and then you were handing it to Ellen or someone and they were then just going, yeah, okay, good. And then they were going to deliver it immediately. So how do you get into that, oh my God, we've got this deadline quick. How are you going to even make something really funny? Is that where the best ideas come from, with the last minute thing?
Yeah, there's a lot of us with ADHD in in this business. What is a problem in other parts of our lives is an asset in this. So part of it is just wiring. Part of it is experience. Most of the shows that I worked on for my career, they were 5-day-a-week shows, 5-night-a-week shows. I mean, Ellen, it's 5 shows a week. Leno, Letterman, all those shows. You just do it over and over again. And as great as the show is, you show up at work the next morning at 8 and you go, well, what do we have today?
Yeah, brilliant.
So you sort of get used to that, and you're always working towards, well, we tape at 4:30, so something's going to happen. So I don't know what it's going to be, but the thing is empty. It'll be full by 4:30. And with Ellen, the way it worked there is we would rewrite the monologue with her. Someone would be assigned. We would pitch ideas for it. Someone would be assigned each day to write the monologue and would have it ready the night before or the day before. Would come in, read it with the producers. Then Ellen would get in a little bit later in the morning, and so we'd have to make the changes or solve the problems or the issues. Find alternatives for the issues that the producers pointed out. No way to say. And they were always such great notes. Wonderful, wonderful notes that always made things better. As everyone's bosses tend to, feedback from a boss is always wonderful. But then we would rush to sort of update it, and then we would bring it into Ellen, and she would read it, and there would be things she liked and things she didn't. Hopefully they were just a handful. But sometimes...
What was that feeling, Beth, at that point? Because this is your hard work. please God, please, I'm hoping Ellen's going to love this, or,
So it would be one person. So there'd be one name. So she would sort of be reading something. And there were 4, 5, 6, depending on how many writers in that room, in her dressing room or her office at that point in the day. So maybe 5 or 6 writers, 3 producers, executive producers. And Ellen would be reading something with her reading glasses on. And to herself, she would... face down, face looking down at the paper. And then if it was your day that you wrote it and there was a phrase in there or a joke or a punchline that particularly tickled her, she would sort of look up over the glasses and repeat the phrase. And you could tell something had landed well. So that felt great. I mean, I was a big Ellen fan. I remember watching her on Johnny Carson. I don't know, for the Americans, it was sort of, I don't know who you'd compare it to, I guess Graham Norton or maybe more Parkinson, because it was someone that we all grew up with.
Yeah.
7 years old with an ear infection, got to stay up late, got to watch something at 11:30 before my parents went to bed. Yeah. So it was a real treat. And making someone that had really entertained you as a kid enjoy something, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious. Sorry, Beth, go on.
No, I was going to say, if you hear a weird sound in the background, that's my printer deciding to reset for no apparent reason.
Oh, nice. How selfish of the printer. Very nice. Thank you.
Told it I was recording.
Well, I'm really curious for this because I'm a big fan of, so I've actually, this is a true story. I've actually sat at the desk of Jimmy Fallon.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like as glamorous as it sounds. It's that thing where you can go on a tour and you can go sit on it. Have you seen this? There's like a tour.
Every show I worked on, we'd sort of go, okay, rehearsal's over, leave because the tram with all the tourists is coming over.
That's it. Yeah. And it was so cool. And I had to read a monologue and it was really cool, but it was really hard to do it. But I loved it. But I love all the American comedies. I love Saturday Night Live and I love watching Please Don't Destroy. Is it Please Don't Destroy? Have you seen this? It's it's like they've kind of like replaced the Lonely Island. So there's 3 boys, and they're all in the writer's room for Saturday Night Live, but they've made their own sketches and their own movies now, and it's basically just a skit comedy of them trying to write jokes, but they include all the celebrities that turn up on Saturday Night Live. It's hilarious, but it's really good. But I just love the whole process of going, how do you even know like if something is funny? Because like in a room where you're like in there with all the other guys, like it's not an environment where you're in a room with like stand-up comedy or as a magician where you've got an audience that's live. So how did you even know like, I think the joke's gonna be really funny?
Honestly, people laugh but you can when you're with other people.
True.
They laugh or they don't. I have been around the best people the top comedians in the business who will go, is this anything? Is this anything? Yeah. Because you need an audience. So they laugh or they don't. It's reductive.
Yeah.
But, or at least they react or they don't. And you can tell that, especially when it's people who are jaded and not rooting for your success, when they laugh.
Yeah.
But it's true. When they laugh, then it's emotional connection and it's kind of involuntary. I mean, that's why humor is such a powerful tool for connection because it's emotion. Happiness is an emotion. And if you can make someone feel something and have that involuntary reaction of a smile or a laugh, it's immediate feedback.
Absolutely.
And so think about what you do with your partner or your spouse. Have you ever talk
about that on here? But yeah.
Well, think of some of the things that you do with your partner. But have you ever sort of asked for forgiveness just by trying to make your partner smile?
Yeah.
And they couldn't be more irritated with you. Mm-hmm. But you can still get a smile. You can get something. You smile, a crack. But if you can do that with someone who's literally angry with you, it's certainly possible to do it with strangers. But it's really just, you're saying things between the lines. Everyone knows what's happening.
Yeah. It's so funny because as a magician, like we have like a framework where it's, we perform a certain trick and a routine. And it's like that kind of Malcolm Gladwell thing of the 10,000 hours of mastery. Some of my best lines that I believe are now funny because they get a laugh because they're just repeated. It's done so many years. It just happens naturally. But those lines just kind of evolved over time. Whereas when I was first doing it, it didn't happen. I remember like one of the greatest lines that I had, I was at a summer party and I just had this stock line, which I just asked the question, which was, does anybody know the difference between a magician and a mind reader? And some drunken guy was like, it's about £300, mate, isn't it? I went, that's gold. That's amazing. And then that's kind of like come into like my routine and going, wow. So it's quite useful to just keep, doing these things and just doing it over and over, because these things just start to happen. You go, oh, right, well, that got a laugh. I'm going to add that in. But I'm
That's
curious
because it's feedback,
yeah,
right?
It's feedback. Yeah, absolutely.
It's necessary. And there are things that some of the best laughs. So part of it is repetition and just it's not just feedback once, it's getting feedback over and over again. Because I do a lot of one-to-one work with speakers who are professional speakers. I mean, a lot of first-timers, but people who make 5 figures every time they go on stage. But there are things, we can write great stuff, but with TV shows, there's rehearsals. You rehearse stuff all week to see where the funny is, where the reactions are. With the daily shows, we would go in and Ellen would rehearse the monologue. We would rehearse the comedy with every TV show. You go and you rehearse the comedy. And if you can get the camera guys to laugh, then you got something.
I was going to ask that, yeah, because who would be in that audience? That's right, yeah.
Because they've seen everything. They're not giving anything. They're looking at their phone and smoking a cigarette. They're barely paying attention. They've seen everything for 40 years.
Yeah.
So if you can get a reaction from them, then you know. But it's iterative. You don't know until you do it. And we watch these Netflix specials, and it looks like someone's just coming up with these ideas off the top of their head. No, they've done this material. It's 10,000 hours. It's not just the craft of delivering it. They've done that material.
Yeah.
And found every breath, every pause, every eyebrow, every tagline, so every extra punchline to it, every transition, because they've done that material a couple of thousand times. I mean, and so part of it, well, when I try to explain to people what's funny, it's just, truth is funny. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to be clever. You don't need puns or dad jokes. They're nice. It's all fine if that's what you enjoy. But just truth is funny. And all we do as comedians is observe and report truth. So sometimes, and the two kinds of truth that work very well are self-awareness and specificity. So just acknowledging what your audience might be noticing or thinking about you or the situation. So not putting yourself down, not being self-deprecating, just being aware of what, reflect back to people what's in the thought bubble above their heads. And specificity is just, if truth is funny, then details are hilarious because they're relatable. But for self-awareness, so I have, for instance, in the first quarter of my talks, I explain, the last 30 years, I've spent the comedians are very good at connecting. We have to be because nothing else we do works. We have to be because if we can't connect with our audience, nothing else we do works. I've been a comedian for the past 30 years. I'm ruining my own material. It's that time of day. I just realized, no, I say that afterwards, but it's that I've spent the past 30 years as a comedian and as a writer for other comedians and TV shows. These are some of the shows I've worked on. That's the in. And I have a slide that has a lot of fancy logos. So it's Ellen and the Oscars and Letterman and, a bunch of Netflix specials and just lots of, ooh, look how important she is. But the line that comes after that, which was just a total throwaway that I said once, which was, well, these are the shows I'm willing to admit to. And to me, it sounds like nothing. I wouldn't have written it down, but in the moment, it got a laugh. And now I say it every time because it got a reaction. So it clearly touched a nerve.
Yeah.
And with humor, a lot of times it's self-awareness. And we can also say a lot of things between the lines with humor.
Yeah.
In the same way when you're apologizing to your partner, you're saying, I'm really sorry, I was just a jerk. I'm also saying, this looks fancy, but there was a lot of, I paid a lot of dues before I got to do that.
Yeah.
It's not just, I'm not just trying to impress you. We all have a journey.
Yeah.
But I think so much is just being aware of what strikes people.
Yeah, so this is really interesting because, like yourself, so I'll have a structure when I present. I'm doing a keynote or doing a presentation, I'll have a structure that I'll follow, and then I'll go off. So we model a lot of people in the Confident Club, and my mentor, Steve McDermott, was like best friends with Sir Ken Robinson, and he once asked Sir Ken and said, Sir Ken, because his famous TED talk, how schools kill creativity. There's a laugh every 29 seconds. And he asked him, he said, what would be some good advice for our delegates in our workshops? And he said, well, I think presenting or speaking is like jazz. I go up with a tune in mind, but I'm prepared to go off on a few twiddly bits. And what's interesting for us as a comedian and as a magician, there's always those improv moments. So if I'm going to get someone up on stage, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I've got a few stock lines to handle those things, but sometimes some of the great gold comes from these mishaps or just people saying stuff. And I'm finding this really fascinating, which we'll probably talk offline on this. I'm doing a TED talk in 6 weeks' time. And so to add those moments in there where you restrict time, I haven't got that flexibility. So it's thrown me off massively because I'm like, well, usually I'm going to get someone up and something's going to happen. I'm going to say something, but I've got to be such on the dot. But I wanted to just talk about this whole idea about structures because you have a wonderful framework that you talk about and how you have an approach to humor. You've obviously already talked a little bit about truth, but I wanted to talk about this idea of the connecting like a comedian, the rhythm authenticity, and this love language that you talk about. Could you share some of that with us?
Sure. Well, I talk about humor as a love language because it's a love language in that it's a way to say things between the lines. It's a way to say things that we couldn't or wouldn't say directly. And again, going back to the example that I used, apologizing to your spouse. There's a lot said between the lines, but everyone knows what's being said. And it can be an incredible tool in business because you're telling people, look, if something goes wrong, and this is not telling jokes, right? This is just reflecting truth. But what you can be saying in business between the lines is often, well, very often, I'm easy to work with because if you are able to laugh when something doesn't go well, or sort of smile, diffuse some tension, and keep going, not just laugh, like a crazy person when things don't go well, but you're showing you're resilient and you're easy to work with. Those are things that you would not say directly. I mean, maybe you would if you were in a job interview. I'm very resilient and I'm very easy to work with. I'm insistent that I am very easy to work with. You wouldn't just say that.
No, yeah.
But you can demonstrate it.
Mm.
With a line. You can demonstrate it with how you react to things. We use it all the time. I use an example of being, because it happened. I was in line at the train station and I was waiting for a coffee and the guy in front of me in line was just being an absolute jerk to the kid behind the counter. And when it was my turn, I got up there and I just said, he seems nice. And she smiled. I sort of, in describing humor as a love language, I think, okay, what was it that I was trying to say with that? And it was, I see you. Yeah, I want you to feel good. Yeah. But I wouldn't have said those things directly to the kid behind the counter at the Starbucks at 7 a.m. I see you. Yeah. I want you to feel good. That's you leave there in handcuffs. But it's so if you are a leader, there are things that you can say between the lines. And actually, just not too long ago, I tried to be coy about where it was, but I was at a big association conference.
Big association?
Maybe, but there had been some interesting financial things happening, and the membership was sort of a little bit up. There had been some very tense Zoom calls, and some people, there was some stepping down, and those sorts of things. And this all proceeded, it was like 2 weeks before, it all kind of came to a head 2 weeks before the big 3-day conference where people want to go and have fun and network. And there were a lot of question marks about things like, how is this going to affect the association? And is the event even going to happen? Those sorts of things. What's the future look like? And the guy who was the interim president got up just to do a little welcome before he brought the first keynote speaker on stage. And he said, and so obviously there was a lot of tension in the room because it was the only thing people were talking about. And all he did was he said, I have to address the elephant in the room. Mm. There is no elephant. We can't afford one.
Great.
And it was so small.
Yeah,
but
it's that indirect love language there. Love it.
What's between the lines there? It's, look, yes, things are going, this will be okay. Things will be fine. We're in good hands. I understand your concerns. I hear your concerns. To me, that is so powerful. Because also, not only did it relieve the tension, it conveyed a message. And it conveyed a message. Now, he had also I'd watched him for 2 weeks doing a wonderful job of calmly and carefully saying, this is the path that we have decided, and this is how we are going to move forward. But that wasn't the time for it. It wasn't the time for that talk. And also, how much did he convey? How long did it take to say that line? 2 seconds?
Yeah, not long.
How much did he convey?
Everything, yeah.
That's efficient. I mean, that's bang for the buck.
Yeah. And he's got everybody's attention then, hasn't he? He's got everyone on his side because they're like, okay, yeah, cool, got it. Right. It's done. You've addressed it in such a fun, brevity way. Now let's move on.
Yeah, and didn't try to solve it. He wasn't solving it. He wasn't anything. He was just simply acknowledging it. And I think that can be in leadership communication and in all sorts of communication. I mean, for speakers, that's incredibly important. If you're there to give speak about DEI, and everyone's sitting there going, "Oh, we're going to have to listen to the sexual harassment thing." I mean, at least acknowledge that they don't want to be there somehow.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that people are speaking about. If you're 6'8", acknowledge it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because people are simply to remove it as potential distraction. I mean, that's what we do as comedians. That's self-awareness. You don't have to put yourself down, but as comedians, and as a performer, I mean, okay, I'll ask you. You're a magician. I know that people have preconceived notions.
Yeah, yeah.
And hence your joke, your opener of what's the difference between that is, and you're actually explaining that. So what's the difference between a magician and a mind reader? I'm assuming it's a setup to a joke that was also going to be intentional without the drunk guy's input. But you were explaining that for a purpose.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want a tag for that, if you go, about 300 pounds, I won't tell you which direction.
That's nice. That's good. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice tag. But it's funny though, because this is exactly what happened to me. So I did a keynote this year. I won't say names, right? So if they're listening to this, they're probably not listening to this, to be honest. But I was introduced as the motivational speaker, which I was like, oh, fucking hell. Great. Fantastic, right? We all want to be motivated in the UK. And one of the board members came on before me. There was like, it was a whole afternoon. And they're all techie people, and they were full of introverts because the guy did this from the board. This is the first thing that came out of his mouth. So he's like 3 speakers before me. He comes out and he says this: the last company that I worked at had far much more energy than this room. So it was I present, we're going to have to dial this energy up. I was like, great start, mate. Well done. You've just instantly pissed people off. And he said, who in this room are extroverts? 2 hands went up. One was me and him. That was it. I was like, great. So immediately these are room introvert people, right? And he tried the whole tag of like, can I get a, oh yeah? And everyone went, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So I was like, right, I was the last speaker, right? I am the only thing that's in the middle of them getting off to the bar, which is what they really want to do, right? So I said it straight away instead of like my normal line, because I thought they're fucking pissed off. They don't want to be here at all. So I just said that. I know what you're thinking. The only thing that's stopping you from getting to the bar is me. So why don't we have a little bit of fun? Like, yeah, good. And you probably because it's paying attention to what's going on, right? Rather than me going, yeah, I'm the motivational speaker. Come on, who wants to be motivated?
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, and again, it's the same way self-awareness. And that's self-awareness, right? You're just acknowledging, okay, I'm the only thing standing between you and the bar.
Yeah.
Comedy writing tip, always end with the word that's most important to the joke. In that case would be bar. I'm the only thing... It'll make it punchier, a little more impact.
That's interesting.
I'm the only thing.
Just write the timestamp so I can come back to that. Love it. Yeah, thank you.
It works either way. It just has a little more oomph.
And why is that? What's the science behind that, or why does that have the oomph then?
Science. Well, I would say that it's because it's the last thing that ear hears. So it's the word that sort of it's the word you give the most emphasis. Often, if you can, you try to find the funnier word, or I'm the other thing standing between you and the bar. You and the bar. Yeah. I mean, not giving you a line read, but it's a line you can really hit, and you know that they're definitely going to hear that word. Nice.
So there's a bit of it's a bit like recency and primacy that typically people tend to remember the beginning and the end. So like we always say, like start off your presentation strong. Get the curiosity, whether it's a prop or something or a line or whatever. So that kind of adds to that in that line, doesn't it? Because they're going to remember the start. Oh, right, yeah, cool. And then the bar. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's very nice. Very nice. Well, I didn't expect that gold tip there. Thank you there. Thank you. Maybe
I'll invoice you.
Edit that out just for like Patreon members. Yeah, you can't get that one. No, thank you for that. So obviously we talked about self-awareness. So there's a couple of questions here that I'd love to be curious about, because choosing the right humor for the right setting. Because I've seen this before. Like I listened to Parenting Hell podcast with Josh Widdicombe and Rob Beckett. And they often share about when comedians do corporates, I've done a few corporates where I've been booked as a magician, and it's the worst traumatic experience of my life. Nobody wants me there. When they find out what my fee is, they're like, oh, that could have gone on the bar, and they're pissed, drunk. They don't want to be there. So these whole, corporate experiences are really bad. So, and I see this where time and time again, like comedians or magicians, performers will have the same kind of performance as a wedding or something else. So I'd like to know that. How do we choose the right humor for a professional audience?
I would say that think about why you're using the humor. You're using it to connect, and you're using it, and again, framing it as a love language, as a way to sort of, to bring people together, but to say things that are important and say things that you wouldn't say directly. So when you're using it humor at work in any context, I would say the only appropriate use is for connection. So does it go through the filter? Is this going to connect people? Now, as a comedian, look, I'm going up there. I guess it depends what the brief is. If you are there, if I'm Rob Beckett and someone hires me, I do stand up. That's what I do. I don't give keynotes. I don't do this. You have hired me to be me, and I'm going to go up and be me. And you knew what you were getting. But me, Beth, I'm a comedian, but I talk about how to use humor as a tool for connection. So it would be counterproductive for me to go up and shit all over the audience. So it would be fun, but for me personally, and I'm not generally, I know people do it very, very well, but to me, even in a club, I usually prefer to take the view of it's not funny unless everyone is laughing. So you can tease people, but you have to sort of do it a smile on your face and make it clear that there's some affection behind it. So I think it's also how you do it.
Yeah.
And again, someone who is a professional comedian is going to be more skilled at doing it. I would trust, I wouldn't, I would not give a second thought to hiring someone like Rob Beckett. But do expect that you're going to get something that will be, just tell the comedian that you hire, this is not the Saturday late crowd. This is just kind of keep it moderate.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember the original question because I've now gone on 4 tangents.
I can't remember myself. I was just so engrossed into your answer. Oh, it was about applying humor in a professional environment. Yeah.
So it's seasoning. So, you don't always need a lot, but you always need some. And wife is calling.
Is that the printer ringing you?
No, that was my wife ringing me, which she knows I'm on a podcast. I hope she apologizes to be using some humor.
How dare her? I can't believe it.
So, yes, I am incensed. So let's try to take this part from the start. Since we've lost everything, since we sort of lost the thread. Hold on, I'm just typing on podcast.
We can edit this out if you like. Keep it, yeah.
Yes, if we could just edit this part out.
That's this part out, yeah.
This one. So okay. So the let's get back to the question.
Shall I do it again, like in like a really professional format, as if like we're just professionals? Are you ready for this, Beth? So you've never heard of this question. Are you ready? Beth, here's a question for you. Are you ready for this? Beth, how do we? I've even lost it now because I can't even look at it. I've lost my thing. What I was going to ask you. Here we go. I'm going to do it again. We'll do it again. This could be outtakes or bloopers, right? Okay, Beth, are you ready for this next question?
I couldn't be more ready.
All right, okay. So how do you choose the right humor for a professional audience?
Well, I'm glad you asked me, Ricky. And if the editing has happened, and please leave this part in, it's because we got interrupted by several things, phone calls and text in the middle, and then we both lost our trains of thought, so we've started again. But how do you've seen through the farce, how do you figure out what's appropriate? And my overall answer was, you're using, at work, in a professional environment, you're using humor as a tool for connection. And connection means, you want to build trust and rapport. And so keep that in mind when you choose what you're going to say. So, look, humor is a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. You can use a hammer to build something, you can use a hammer to hurt someone. And so, have you ever hit your thumb with a hammer? I have. I didn't do it on purpose. So mistakes happen. But I think if you put through anything you are planning to say through the filter of, is this going to build something? Is this going to build trust and rapport? Is this going to increase connection? That's a pretty good filter to run stuff by. Now, that's not to say you have to run it through that filter when you're writing your first draft. I mean, if you're speaking or you're doing something, hey, go for broke in your first draft. That's why there's editing. But if there's anything that you sort of think, yeah, I don't know, think about, well, is there a different way it could come across?
Yeah.
Or also sometimes, I mean, I had a client earlier today and he had something and there's always a different way to say it. Even if it's something naughty, there's usually a way to say it or to use a euphemism. There's a way to do it where you're bringing people in. It's a wink to them and you let them do the math, right? You let them, and you can also sort of go, hey, get your minds out of the gutter. That's not me. Hey, whoa. Without, because you can sort of start it, they'll finish it in their own minds. But then you're building connection because you're a mind reader.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bringing things full circle. So I think that's it. And if you're speaking from stage, my personal rule, and it was kind of my rule in stand-up too, to me, mostly because I hate conflict, but it's not funny unless everyone's laughing. And that is not just for sort of kumbaya, everyone feels good, let's have hugs. You know what sounds better than 100 people laughing? 200 people laughing. So your instinct that something is funny, you might be right on, but see if you can sort of get the version your grandma would smile at. It's usually possible.
Yeah. I love that. That's a lovely response. Well, I've got a couple of questions before we finish the ones to ask you. So it's about like how much humor is too much. Like I mentioned about Sir Ken's, he has like a laugh every 29 seconds, whether that was intentional or not. But like how much humor is too much in a presentation?
Well, it's funny because Sir Ken, I do like his talk, but it's always everyone mentions it to me and I go, it feels a little, to me, it felt a little bit like trying too hard. Because there's a bit, let's be clear, I'm not shitting on Sir Ken. I'm just saying that if you're preparing your TED Talk.
Yeah.
If you aim for every 29 seconds, like I would be insufferable. I am very good at this. I would be insufferable aiming for that. Mm. It's always content first. Seasoning, it's that time of day. I'm having the small strokes. So humor is seasoning. It's not the main ingredient. Your content and your message is the main ingredient. So get your content figured out. Get your message figured out. Get all of that done. And then go back and in your editing process. So then also pull out all the, trim the fat that you need to trim. And then once you have your sort of your version 2 or your version 3, whatever it takes you, then go in and look for comedic opportunities. Nice. For a few reasons.
Yeah.
One, because one of the things that frustrates me is I love humor and truth. And if I start doing that too early in the process, I come up with some great stuff that is off point. Or I would have to give 4-hour keynotes. So
yes. Yeah.
Bring a lunch. Sherman speaking. So yeah, inevitably the best joke that you will have, or the best laugh line, right? Because they're not intentional jokes, you're just reflecting truth, will be connected to something where you go, I don't have time for that. But humor is seasoning. And even when I work with a lot of people who are very earnest, or they say, my topic, what do you do? I'm a forensic accountant. Okay. Humor is seasoning. So torturing that metaphor. But if you think of it like salt, not everything needs a lot, but everything needs some. So sometimes all you need are a few flakes of sea salt on chocolate, and it's transformative. And if you use too much, it's just weird. So it has to be in balance. For someone who's like me, the word humor is in, my tagline and it's on my business card. So if it would be out of balance to not get some laughs. That actually becomes a pain because people go, I have to really ask people, please just read the intro that I wrote for you.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to sort of read the IMDb page or sort of read everything. And then it comes across as she's the president of comedy. Yeah. And then you just get a lot of people with their arms crossed going, dazzle me.
Yeah. That was my story where they read me out as a motivational speaker. Like, where have you got that from? Because I didn't say that in my intro. What? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, hang in there, people. Yeah, exactly.
Woo. Yeah, come on then, mate. Motivate me. Well, I've got a couple of quick fire rounds, and I've created something called the Lock and Sherman Laughing Stock. So you ready for this, Beth?
The Locke and Sherman laughing stock.
Yeah, I think Locke and Sherman sounds pretty cool. I think there's some sort of magic there. Who knows, right? But this is a quick
Or a law
round.
firm. Yeah.
You can answer as long or as little as you want. I know you got to go soon, so we'll be quick. But quick fire questions. Are you ready?
I am.
Right. Best quick joke that you use when acknowledging something awkward on stage.
Exactly as planned.
What's your funniest real life observational moment?
Well, I was at a party once and I saw a friend that I hadn't seen for a while, sort of a friend of a friend, but we'd worked together. And I wouldn't say funniest, I would say most awkward that became funny. And I said, how's work? And she said, I'm not working there anymore. And then I asked about the guy she had been seeing for quite some time. And she said, we're not together anymore. And then I remembered that her mom had been sick. And I said, how's your family? And she said, how's your mom? And she said she passed away. And this is someone who was also a comedian. Wow. But by the end of it, we were both crying and laughing. It was literally like, wow, I just, every time I thought, well, that's awkward.
Yeah.
Let's try to make this less awkward. And poor Cece I think I was struck out probably 4 times, more than 3.
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell me how you're doing? Can I just give you a hug?
Wow. You've just made me think back to a time, I don't know if you do this as a comedian, where when you say jokes that you're doing it all the time, it starts to just become like your tagline, or it's just, it's part of your routine, that you just become like unaware, it's like unconsciously competent, it's just happening. You just don't realize where you are. And I do this trick at the end of like a wedding or a big corporate where everyone gets their phones out, we all time some numbers, and it becomes this beautiful number. And it's always like their wedding day and something special. So I always ask this question, which is, John or the groom, give me a year that means something to you. And they always most often go for like, 2019. I go, great. Does that mean anything to you? Oh, that's the year we met. I went, this nice thing. And for whatever reason, my brain just was not switched on that day. But I said, give me a year that means something to you. 2019, great. Why that year? That's the year my dad died. Stick. And I carried on like a real trooper, but I went, oh my fucking God, I'm so sorry. And he went, don't worry, it's all right. It was a big laugh. Don't even worry about it. I went, oh, Jesus Christ. Right. Anyway, right. Back to these. Are you ready? Right. Before I...
Well, I'll give you one more from stage that I did. Please, and I had a big show at the Improv up in, it was Northern California, but I can't remember where it was. But it's a great venue. It's an old vaudeville theater that's still a theater. And so it was really, you do all the comedy clubs and they're fine, but it's just like your sticky floors and things like that. And this is this really cool Art Deco theater. It's a real stage. And I went up there and having a good show. And I was talking to the crowd a little bit. And there was a woman in the front row who just wasn't laughing, and sort of then asked her a question. She didn't answer. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was along the lines of, sorry, should I say it louder? Do you need to lip read? And the person who was sitting next to her said, she is deaf. I thought she was just trying to sort of not acknowledge me. And I went, okay, well, that's awkward.
Swallow me up now. Yes, God. Well, I can say, Beth, that there has been times where I've done a magic trick, which is like a 6-minute trick, and it's ended in a minute because, like, we have this thing in magic called multiple outs. So the magician always wins, right? No matter what happens. And there has been times where I've had to pull that out. I've just get off quickly because I'm like, no, I'm not staying anymore. I've just ruined it. Okay. Comedy hero or heroine that you would love to collaborate with. That was not heroin, the drug, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Who do I want to do lines? Who do I want to shoot up with?
Who do you want to do a line with? Let's go for it. Come on.
Well, a lot of my heroes, I mean, they probably would. Lenny Bruce, and I don't know about collaborate with, but I grew up listening to, I didn't listen to music growing up. I grew up listening to comedy albums, and there's a few in the shot behind me.
True.
But I think it's flipped, so they might be backwards. So get a mirror if you're watching. But I grew up listening to George Carlin, a lot of Bill Cosby. He was from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say it was before we knew. This was the 80s when I was listening. We didn't know. But yeah, I mean, there's a guy called Tom Lehrer who did funny songs. There's a guy called Alan Sherman. No relation, unfortunately, but he did funny songs. If you've ever heard Hello Mudda, Hello Fada, Here I Am It. Don't sing on the podcast.
Before my time, that one, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, also behind me, Mel Brooks. Yeah. Mel Brooks my dad loved Mel Brooks, and that was from the time I was a little kid, I mean, that just absolutely shaped. That is my comic point of view in a nutshell, and my family.
Oh, I love it. What's one humorous misconception about comedians?
That we're funny off stage. Actually, I won't say that we're funny off stage, but that it's sort of that we're always on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Are you
frequently
ever like
funny.
miserable or like, because they say like a lot of comedians are like quite depressive people, like that's why they get a lot of their stuff. But
Yeah, well, look, if you think of humor, I mean, a lot of humor is also a defense mechanism. And very often, this has been having worked for a lot of people who were very, very successful. Humor is often a defense mechanism. It's a self-protection. It diffuses tension, but often the reasons that people get very good at it are because there's been a lot of tension to diffuse. And it is a wonderful tool for shifting perspective. But people who really develop that muscle considerably think about what it is that they've had to overcome. And it's often really horrible, horrible stuff. I mean, people that I have worked for, gigantic names in the business, I have heard stories of their upbringing. I always said to my parents, if you'd been worse people, I'd be more successful. So I think when you develop any coping mechanism to such a high degree, you sort of have to look at what's behind it. So that's why I think there's often, it's sort of the sad clown cliche, but that's often why it's, But also, I mean, comedians, we tend to be introverts, and it's a weird mix of, you can sort of, there's an on-off switch. So on stage in front of a ton of people, it's a pleasure. Mm-hmm. But the intimacy, for lack of a better word, of interacting with one-to-one or just a few people, that can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
And terrifying. So we're often very shy people, even though we can get up in front of a few hundred people.
Yeah.
So it's all. Yeah. It's not necessarily that we're miserable off stage. It's often shy.
Yeah.
You see someone on stage just killing it, just getting huge laughs, and then you see them after the show and they're at the bar afraid to make eye contact with anyone.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm an ambivert. I thought I was like an extrovert, and I think I'm an ambivert because when I'm performing, especially where I live, where people recognize me, I'm not famous at all, but they recognize me because of all the weddings and events that I do. So when I go into Tesco's, they're like, Ricky, how are you? I'm like, hi. Buy my milk. I'm fucking miserable. I just want to get on with life, So I can't imagine like what it'd be like for comedians in public, like, hi, yeah.
Well, do you get? Oh, tell me a joke. I mean, do you get? Do me a trick.
Yeah, I'm wishing with my wife and my daughter at the minute. I haven't got anything with me. Oh, come on, can you make something disappear? No. Sorry.
I'm going to make these cookies disappear.
Yeah. Just close your eyes. I'm going to disappear. You ready? Gone. That's all I do. All right, last question for you. This one was generated from ChatGPT. So, I mean, who knows where this could go, right? Are you ready?
Dear.
Describe your humor style as an ice cream flavor.
This is why I hate ChatGPT. I am not going to dignify ChatGPT with a response, so I'm just going to tell you the flavor that I had the other day at a gelato place here in London that was unbelievably good, which was ricotta sour cherry. It was a very pretentious place, and I'm telling you, cheesy ice cream, I had my doubts, but man, was it good. So suck it, ChatGPT.
Love it. Good. Got it. All right, so we'll finish up then, Beth. So, what's one actionable humor tip that listeners can use right away? Obviously, they're going to want to book you, of course, so which we'll plug you in a second. But what's one simple thing that they could go do now to start adding more humor in their communication?
Remember that truth is funny when you're presenting or when you're trying to diffuse tension, when you're trying to do any of that. Instead of trying to add jokes, add truth. Especially if you're putting for presentations, think about what's the next thing that happened. Add detail. What's the next thing that happened? We all tell our origin stories of, well, I got into this because I got fired from that. And well, tell us about the day you got fired. I mean, we all talk about storytelling now and the importance of storytelling. Storytelling is fantastic. But humor in storytelling, if you can add humor to your storytelling, that is rocket fuel. Yes. So give us more details, give us more truth.
Love that. Well, Beth, if people want to find out more about you, they want to come work with you, tell us where can they find you?
Well, find me on LinkedIn. Very easy to find me on LinkedIn. It's Beth Sherman, but you can also find me at bethsherman.com, and I speak on how to use and do workshops on how to use humor as a tool for better communication, and I work one-to-one with speakers to help them make their talks more engaging so that they get booked more often and make more money doing it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Beth. Thanks for coming on Unlocked. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.